Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the SH Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyan Trunks, the boy from the future. Probably the most anticipated figure in the line in a long time. Most people love Trunks. Most people wanted a new Trunks. Here he is. Is it the best figure ever? No. It's not. There's a lot of good stuff. We're going to talk about the good stuff, but there's a lot of bad stuff too, and I have to talk about all of it. It's my job as a reviewer to inform you, not just to gush over the newest thing for a popular character. So, we're going to talk about all of that. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands, trying to estimate where his skull would be, about 14 centimeters for scale purposes. That's going to make him just about, let's say, 5.5 inches. It's not exactly right, but it's pretty close. Here he is up against Darwin. He's got some pretty good size to him, which is not necessarily a good thing. As far as Dragon Ball figures from Bandai, they don't scale perfectly, but he does seem a bit big. Let's put him up against Goku. And yeah, I would say he's too big. There are instances where he's drawn to be pretty tall, but I don't think he's ever this tall. Like, he's basically 1-for-1 with Goku right now, give or take. Just a little bit shorter, I think. But he's usually more slender and shorter, and in this case, he is not. He is big, so scaling is definitely a problem. His head even looks kind of big compared to Goku's. You look at the face and whatnot. Scaling is definitely a potential problem here. Some people probably won't care, some people will. Now you know he is probably technically too big. Real quick guys, before we get into the rest of the video, I do want to tell you about a new gaming chair. Well, it's a brand that I haven't talked about before, and I have one now, and they are really nice. And here's the thing, don't worry if you're not gaming, they have all kinds of different varieties. They have ones that look like regular office chairs, or ones that look like Sparko racing seats. If you want, you can have any variety you want. They come in all different sizes. The one that I have is the jumbo super extra large one for really big people, and it is incredibly comfortable. These things are easily some of the best chairs that I have ever sat in. These chairs are made with really nice components. The materials are really good. You're always going to have some level of plastic on something like this, but the plastic is either over metal or not something that is weight bearing. These things are super heavy duty, overbuilt, or at least the big one is. I can't try out the little ones, I don't fit in them, but it's really nice. They have nice strong supports, and they have all kinds of features too. They have all the features you could possibly want in a chair. They have the reclining features, they have the adjustable tilt for the seat itself, they have a locking mechanism so you can keep it there, so you just sit down and it's exactly the way you left it. You have like very adjustable armrests with height, inside outside movement, forward back, angles, all kinds of stuff. It's basically anything you could want in a chair. These guys have it. It's like I said, they're as good as anything else I've ever reviewed for a gaming chair. They're up there as some of the best for sure, and they happen to look really nice and be made really well. And if you want to have extra lumbar support, you've got a pillow for that. Maybe you have a bad back or something, or if you just want to be able to lean your head back on an extra cushiony pillow, then they also include those. So don't be put off by the fact that some of them look like racing seats. You don't have to get that. They have all different varieties, and even the ones that do look like racing seats, they are very tastefully designed and they look really good. And I like these chairs a whole bunch, and I thought you guys might too. So use my discount code, save yourself 20%, and enjoy sitting on something a little bit more supportive and comfortable. Okay, let's go ahead and do a quick question of the day. Which version of Trunks is your favorite? For me, this is it right here. I don't need the blue suit, I don't need the longer hair, I don't need anything. It's just this right here. This is what I like. Which brings me to the accuracy of this. Some people say it's perfectly accurate, some people say it's not accurate at all. It depends what you're comparing it against. If you're comparing against Toriyama's original artwork, it's nowhere close. If you're comparing it against certain parts of the anime, then yeah, it's pretty close. So it really just depends. He's way older looking here, way buffer, way taller, his face, everything, way different than it was originally drawn. So you could easily make the argument for a lack of accuracy. You can also argue that it's pretty close to a lot of the anime, and then you'd be okay. So that's up to you to decide if you like that or not. So let's get into the aesthetic of the figure. There's no paint. There's a very little paint. There's no shading anywhere. The only paint is what's necessary, so you do get like the Capsule Corp logo right there. That's pretty good. That's clean. The belt is clean enough. It's not connected to the pants though, and there is like a little bit of a tab in there, which isn't supposed to be there. That should be like trimmed off. So that's a tiny thing, but it is noticeable. It gets in the way of the belt sitting. So hopefully you guys don't experience that. No painting on the pants, no painting on the boots other than for the white and brown. That is to say there's no shading. For the jacket, you get the little button or snap right there, but there's no shading anywhere on the jacket. No shading here, no shading on the skin tone down there, and it's not painted that well. You can see like a flesh tone lip going all the way around. But there is shading in the hair, and I have to say, this hair, I think, is the best Super Saiyan hair we've seen in a very long time. It harkens back to the earlier SH Figuarts figures. I like it. It's a nice flat finish. The shading's a little bit heavier than it should be, which is the way it was earlier, and I like it. It's not as well distributed as I would like, but it is overall a pretty good look, I think. And then we do have the face, which is done regardless of accuracy to whichever source material. The faces are done really well. The darker flesh tone, like detail lines, are done really well. The eyes are done well. The eyebrows, I like it. I think it looks pretty good. And I do think as a whole it looks fine. Like, it definitely needs more shading and stuff, and it shouldn't be so plasticky because it's very plasticky. Everything looks pretty good on here except for these hip flaps. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they're doing with hips these days, but we just saw Frieza, second form Frieza. He's got really ugly, weird hips. This guy doesn't need these giant hip flaps. They make the legs stick out way too far. It gives him this really segmented look. It doesn't add anything. It could have easily been flush. If this was flush here, like that, it would have looked so much better. But also, if they didn't cut it like shafts, that's not how it should look. This whole hip thing is just ugly, and it's not as functional as it should be. And it's not even, we'll get to that, and it's not even as well executed as it should be. Like, why do they have a gap right here, but it comes up to a point up here? At least, like, add it into the sculpt somehow. This seems really poorly implemented, like way over engineered and then poorly executed. So the hip thing is a problem, but I do like the overall look otherwise, and I think they did a good job sculpting like the wrinkles and the bicep cut and things like that. I like a lot here, but these hips are weird, and the lack of paint is unfortunate. So it's not perfect, but aesthetically speaking, if I wasn't counting the hips, I would give it like an 8, but I'm only going to give it a 7. The lack of paint, the hips being janky, those are problems. And then the way the chest is painted up against that black, I don't know if it's showing up well for you guys, but you can see that lip going all the way around, and it's super distracting. It looks really weird. So yeah, it definitely is not a perfect figure. I'm going to give you the truth, cold hard truth, no matter how popular the character or release is. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the accessories. We do have the Super Saiyan head, which we'll talk about first. Comes with 2 different front hair pieces, the down hair and the up hair. I love that. That's a great addition, so it's really helpful, versatile for posing. I like that a whole bunch. We have 4 of the Super Saiyan faces, the stern one that comes on them in the package, a stern one looking off to the side, an angry one, and then a yelling one. They're all wonderfully done. Some of the better faces they've done. I think they're very nice. We do have the non-Super Saiyan head, which has the purple hair, and that's done pretty well, and it just gets the one face, which is just a stern, normal looking forward face, and I think that looks really good, so very pleased with that. For hands, we have the 2 fist hands that come out in the package. You get 2 sets of gripping hands, 2 palm hands, and then 2 different style pose hands for whatever you want to use. And then lastly, you get his sword and scabbard. Not as nice as I would like. If you look at the buckle, it's not painted all that well, and my sword has taken some wear on the blade from sheathing and unsheathing, so not the best thing not the best executed thing in the world, but it's a good enough accessory. So I will go 8 out of 10. No display stand and no blast effect at all. So yeah, I think they could add a little bit more, but this is still a good set of accessories. Okay, let's talk about the articulation, and this is going to lead me into one other thing for the aesthetic that I didn't mention because it's on the back of the figure, but I'm going to talk about it now. The way they did the jacket is incredibly strange. It's 2 pieces. These 2 pieces are connected by the collar, and then you have this piece down here, and I have yet to figure out exactly why. because I know how the shoulders work and I know what moves when they move, and I don't see how this is that helpful. And it also does create a problem. If you notice, you can see through to the back. You might have noticed that already, but I wanted to save it for the articulation section. It's a little bit weird that they put that big gap there in the back of his collar. At least bring it down so that you don't see through it. That's very, very strange, but we'll get to that. So, you guys will be happy to know we do have a double ball peg for the head to the neck, and then another ball peg for the neck to the body. So not a bunch of range down there, it's mostly just forward and back. But you do get the double ball peg in the neck, which makes posing him significantly easier. You just move the head wherever you want it, that's where it can go. And it has good range. It's really no problem at all, and that is how they need to do all of them. It looks and works so much better. Now, for the shoulders, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you as well as I'd like to be able to show you. You have a ball peg with a socket connected to it, and then you have another ball peg with a socket. And that's how they get the butterfly joint to work on this guy. And so I'm guessing their idea was by being able to do the butterfly joint, they needed this to be separate to flex more. But I don't think so. Like, it could have just been flexible, which it is. So I guess it's okay from the front, but if you're looking at it from the back or getting a big gap in the collar right here, it doesn't really work. And even if they did want to do this, there should have been another piece that came down from the middle so that you don't have a giant gap in the jacket. I get the idea of trying to afford the shoulders as much range as possible, and that's a good thing, but having a big gap isn't. So the butterfly doesn't offer that much range going forward, but it's not bad. I'll take it. And it's not ugly, so I'll take that too. I think this is one of the better ideas for a butterfly joint that they've done. It's just that weird gap in the jacket that kind of offsets that. So bringing the arms up, no problem at all. That's really good. You get your full rotation, obviously, so that's really good. You get your bicep swivel, no problem there. Double jointed elbow, that's really nice. And then you have your ball hinge wrist, that's good. Now you'll notice probably that I'm using this side of the figure rather than this side, which is what I normally do, and that's because that happens. And from what I understand, this happens to all of them. They screwed up somehow either the socket or the peg right here. There's not a good way to fix that. There are things you can do. There's this tape you can use for Gundam joints that might help you wrap it on there and then peg it in. You might be able to get some super glue on there, but it's not going to stick super well. There's not really a good way to fix this. There are some things you can do that might work, but that's going to pop off a lot. And that takes me right back to the SDCC Gohan, where his arm used to pop off all the time. So that's definitely unfortunate, but at least if you can get him in a pose, he'll look pretty good if you can hide the problems. For the torso, it's pretty good. I don't know if there's a hinge. I haven't taken it apart, but he does move around really nicely. I think it's just ball pegs, but there might be a little bit of a hinge that just doesn't move a lot, so it's hard to notice. But it does move around very nicely all the way around, so I like that. And it's going to look good pretty much all the way. So leaning back is probably the worst thing for him, which to me is nice because finally we have a figure that can lean forward and to the side. So that's all pretty good. It's a little floppy though. I wish it was a lot less floppy. This figure did come from the Vietnam factory and is making me wonder if maybe they're slipping back into the lower QC problems, or to the higher QC problems, lower QC checking, because this falls off, this is floppy, and the hips are also floppy. So let's go ahead and talk about the hips. Not even counting that they're ugly and weird looking for no real good reason. Going out to the side, if you tuck them in, you can get full on splits, which is fine, but they're not the best looking hips that we have seen. The inner crotch piece should definitely go farther down to hide that gap. So that's definitely a ding. It could be better. They're also floppy. They're not super floppy, like completely loose, but they're definitely jiggly and they don't hold the pose as well as I would like. So if yours isn't as loose, that's good, but the jiggly nature of the legs is not, I'm guessing that's universal. That's really not okay. Going forward, we don't have as much range as I would like. It's just horizontal. I like a little bit more, especially since they already cut them up to like in weird ass shapes. Being able to bring the hip higher would have been nice, and you can kind of fudge it by leaning him forward, but not that much. And then they did put the butt cheeks, the half butt cheeks on there, so bringing the leg back, not possible. Can't go back. If you ask me, these are not a step forward for the hips. Not good at all. They're ugly, and they don't function well, and they happen to be loose and jiggly. Like, that's the amount of range you get that's just completely loose. That's so frustrating to handle and to pose. Ugh, that's very, very unpleasant. You do get a thigh swivel in this terrible, terrible design, so that's okay. I do think the knees worked out pretty well. You get decent range, and they're not too ugly, so that's okay. A little bit gappier than they probably needed to be, but it's fine. And then for the ankles, we're back to not having good range. Like, what are they doing? Look at this. Look, look, look. You have to see this. They hollowed out the ankle. You see how there's like a gap going all the way around that ball? The ball is way smaller than the gap, so you would think the foot would be able to tuck into that gap. Nope. The foot just bounces off the outside. It tucks in a little bit in the back, but nope. Nope, nope, nope. And this ball, or this ball hinge, does not connect with a ball like on Frieza. It's just a straight peg that connects in, so there's no extra play. So it's way more limited than it needs to be, and it is very limited. You cannot bring the foot farther forward than that, and it only goes that far down. Very, very limited. You get an okay ankle rocker, but not as good as it could be. And then the toe hinge is acceptable, but nothing special. So, as is the case with the rest of the figure, it's not the ultimate SH Figuarts figure just because it's Trunks and it's a new Trunks that looks way better than the old Trunks. It is a Trunks figure, that's good, I guess, if you like Trunks, and it is a solid figure, but it definitely has more than its fair share of problems. Probably wondering why I didn't compare it against the old Trunks. There's just no point. I would tell you to get this one, for sure. The old one is so dated looking, it doesn't really match the current setup at all. This one's going to be readily available, and I do think it looks way better overall, and it comes with good accessories, so just get this one. The other one's not even close to the same size. There's just no need to compare them. This video is already really long. But let's get back to this one. It's riddled with problems. The articulation's not that great. There are good things about it, plenty, but there's also bad things. So I'm going to give him only a 7 out of 10 for articulation. His arm falls off, the legs are super wiggly, the torso's not as tight as it could be, ankles don't work well, the hips don't have as much range as some of the other figures have. There's all kinds of problems with this figure that don't need to exist. So 7 out of 10 for that, and now it's time for the final verdict. Personally, I like the figure a lot. I don't like the QC problems, of course, but I'm still going to enjoy it personally. But as a reviewer, this figure is not special, other than that it is Trunks. If you discount who the character is, the figure does as many things bad as it does good. Maybe not as many, but you get my point. You have to separate, oh, I really like that character, from is it actually a good figure? And it's a good figure, but for SH Figuarts standards, there's a lot going on here that's not great. So I'm gonna give it probably a, well, I like the accessories and I like a lot about it. I'm gonna give it a 7. I think a 7 is a fair rating, and that's not counting that it's Trunks. If you like Trunks a lot, that's good for you, and you can probably ignore a lot of the problems. But I mean, I like Trunks too, but that's not what the review is for. I'm not talking about the character here. I'm talking about the figure, and this alone, gosh, that's annoying. It's so floppy and loose and annoying. Ugh. And even if they had just done like a flat finish and a little bit of shading, that would have gone a long way. But arms that fall off, floppy legs, no paint, like it's just not an impressive release. If this was any character other than Trunks, people would be bagging on it day and night. So there you go. I'm going to give it an overall 7. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. In the meantime, keep collecting.